Hello everyone, my name is Shambhavi. Hope you all are doing well. So basically, now today we are going to see that basically how we can just write out some another multi-threading programs in the threads. Right now we'll be seeing out one another program today, and that will basically consist the classes. It will basically have the classes, the functions, and the main functions. With the it basically will consist all of these three things into this particular function, right? So this is the whole idea that we are gonna cover today. Right, let me just begin out here. So the very first thing is that I've been porting out the threading here. Okay, as I have told previously, and now again I'm just telling you that thing that basically in Python 3 we actually do not import the thread. That thread actually do not work, right? So in that case we just import out the threading in the Python 3, right? So this is the reason that why I am just importing out this this threading here. Right, got the idea? Now basically next what I'll be just doing is that I would be importing out the time as well. Okay, I just want to import out the time as well. So I'm just importing that particular time because this time is one another module that I'll be using throughout my whole program. Okay, throughout my program that will be writing, I'll be using out this time module. Okay, right. Now basically what I would just do is that I'll make out a class. Okay, now just make out a class here. So the name for my class is, let's say, A1. Okay, or let me just give it as, let's say, 1. Okay, 1 is the name for my class, and inside the bracket I was just passing here threading dot thread. Okay, I'll just pass this out here, that is threading dot thread, right? And I will just put out the colon and come on to the next line. This threading dot thread means that I am basically, with the help of the threading module, I'm just going to trying to make out a thread, and that I'm just passing inside the class. Okay, now here I'll be just making out my init function. So def underscore underscore init underscore underscore, and inside the bracket self will automatically be passed. Okay, that self is basically one of the constructors that I have here. Okay, now basically what I would just do is that I would put out a comma here. I would just write here id. Okay, and let's say the parameter which I do pass is, let's say, id comma name. Let's say I'm just having I as a variable. Okay, let's say these three are the parameters which I have passed inside of my init function. Right, now I would just come on to the next line here. So basically here I'm just importing out the threading. So threading dot thread, and okay, threading dot thread, I would just put a dot here, and I would just define out the init function once again. With it is this is like init, and again this one, and inside the bracket self would be passed because self is my constructor actually that I am using. So in that case basically I would be passing out the self as well. Right, now just write that self dot id is equal to id. Okay, after that I would just write self dot name is equal to name. Okay, and I would just write self dot I is equal to, okay, that's a single one, is equal to I. Okay, let's say these are the three things which I had just passed on with the help of the self. So here I just self is acting as a constructor for me, and that will actually refer to the object name which I will be making outside my class, right? Objects are always declared outside the class, right? So I'm just making that object name outside my class, and there basically the self would be acting as an object name for me, right? Now basically I'm just defining out a function inside this class, and let's say that function is run. Okay, now basically if you just want to run anything here, if you just want to get some output from this particular place inside the class, we always declare the same function, that is run. We do not change out the function name, right? You remember we had already discussed about this thing in a very detail in the previous video, right? Now I would just write here thread dot, okay, let's say here I'm just writing thread underscore test. That is basically, let's say I'm just going to test out my thread, and inside the bracket I would just write here self dot, and let's say that is basically self dot, I just pass out a name here, comma. After that I would just write here self dot, let's say I, okay, let's say this is self dot I, okay. And after that, let's say I just want to pass out a value, let's say that is 5. Okay, let me just come out down first of all, right here. Okay, so that same thing I've just done, I've just written thread underscore test, and basically I've just passed on the things for this particular thing, right? Right, now basically what is the thread underscore test? This is one of the functions that I will be defining outside my class. Okay, remember, outside my class, that I will be making in a little while. Okay, and instead of this 5, let's say this is 3. Okay, right, now let's come on to the next line, and now basically here I would just add on a print statement, that print, and here would be percent s. Okay, percent s has finished execution. Okay, percent s has finished execution, and I would just okay, yeah, right here I would just put out a percentage, and that is basically that will basically contain my self dot name. Okay, so basically what I just want is that as soon as the execution is completed, I should get a result that the first part of the execution is completed, now second execution is completed, and after that now let's say third execution is completed. Okay, this is the whole idea that I actually want, right? So for that same thing, I'm just writing this here. Okay. Now I would just come out of my class and define a new function here. As I mentioned, that we'll be using the classes, the functions, and the main function as well. Okay. Now that function name is basically thread underscore test that I was writing there. Okay. Inside the bracket, it would be name. Let's say name is one parameter, weight is another parameter, and let's say I is another parameter which I have just passed on inside this function. Okay. Now I would put out a condition that while I, okay, while I, and here I would just write time dot sleep, okay, and into the bracket wait. So basically what I just want is that within some time, it will be basically within some seconds I should get out my answer. Let's say that first one is executing, then after two it waited for 2 seconds, then it is coming, that second is executing, then again waited for 2 seconds, then it, let's say third is executing. Like this I just want the things to appear. Okay, so here inside the print statement, I'll be just writing that running percent is, okay, and I will just write even the name here as a person name. Okay, this is done. Now I will just come down here and I will just apply the loop that I is equal to I minus 1. Okay, I just want to go from go to the backward direction, that is basically go from 3 to 1, something like that. Okay, so in that case I'm just defining the I minus 1. And now is the time for defining out my main function. Okay, so here I'll be defining out my main function, and inside that I'll be making the different threads. Let's say T1. Okay, so T1 is equal to what was my class name that I have written above, that was 1, right? So T1 in bracket 1, and let's say 1 comma, and let's say that is thread 1, and here again 1. Okay, same thing for the T2. So T2 is also equal to 1. Into the bracket it would be 2. Let's say my thread name is thread, okay, not like this, I just need to put out the semi-quotes, and that is thread 2. I would again put out a comma, and let's say this value is here 2, right? Now let me come down here, I would just add T3 is equal to 1. Into the bracket it is 3 comma, and that would be actually thread, okay, let me put out the semi-quotes first of all. So that is thr, okay, thr thread, and here would be 3. Okay, without a comma, and here would be my 3. Right, now basically I would just with the help of this object I'll be just starting and joining, right? So T1 dot, I would just write here is start, put on the brackets like this. After that T2 dot start, put on again the brackets like this, and I have T3 dot start, again put on the brackets like this. Now that will basically help me to start out my threads, right? Now here I would be just writing that T1 dot join. So basically this will be finishing up the execution for my first thread. Okay, T2 dot dot join. This will basically be finishing up the execution for the second one. And here goes the T3 dot join. This will be finishing up the execution for the third one. Right? So this is actually how we just write out the program. First, let me quickly take a revision, then I will just run out the program. Okay, so here I just wrote import threading and the time. So basically threading is the module which I have imported, and other than that I have imported out the time here. Okay, I made out a class with the name that is 1. Okay, and inside that I just passed threading dot thread. So threading is a module which I have imported, and thread is the function from that particular module, right? So here I just use out my init function, and inside the bracket the self was passed. So the self was basically my constructor which we have actually, and I passed on the parameters id and name here. Okay, and in the bracket even this I was also passed, right? Now after that I just use again the threading module and my thread function, and I just initialize start. Okay, dot underscore underscore init underscore underscore, right? And into the bracket self was automatically passed, right, because this is inside the function. After that, with the help of the self.id, I just try to access all the 3 parameters which I had made, id, name and I. After that, I just made a function that is run. Now you basically cannot change the name of the function here, because whenever we just make the threads inside the classes, we always keep out the function name as run only. Okay, and inside the self was passed because the function is actually defined inside the inside the class, right? And I just wrote thread underscore test is this function which I have made, and into this basically I passed on different parameters, different things, okay, different statements. Okay, this was basically for my time, and that is one. After that, basically I just used out my main function here, and inside that main function I just with the help of my class I just made the different objects for that class, and here basically I just gave out the parameters values, that was id, name and I value. Okay, all that I just given here. After that I just started and joined all of these three things here with the help of the objects which I have made, and now I would be just running this here for a while. So now basically have a look that what output I'll be getting. I'll be getting running thread 1, then 2, 1, 3, 1. Thread 1 is finished execution, then 2, 3, 2. Then basically thread 3 has finished execution. So this is how you will be getting out the answer, that your first execution is finished, your second is being finished, and basically your third is also being finished, right? So you just have a look at it, the output which we were able to see that came in different time intervals, right? And that was because of this particular weight one which we have passed on here, right? So basically I hope that you have got a clear and a fair idea regarding that how we just use out these functions, these normal functions, main functions and classes within a same program, right? So this is all for this video. Till then, thank you and take care.